let's move on. Um, I'm going to sum up the Bonnier family in 220 years. So I know I have 15 minutes. I'm going to be very fast. This is me. My story here started with actually my father, who is a fifth generation, still living, and the fact that he was not allowed to work in the family business, which angered him, I think, a lot. And so revenge is as well a good way of doing something. And so he became a successful entrepreneur on himself in the 60s and 70s and 80s. However, when he sold his companies, we all moved to the US for 15 years and came back in the 90s. So I kind of grew up with a part of the family as with a last name, but not really around the dinner table talking about the family business. However, when we came back to Sweden in the 90s, he bought himself into the family business. And me and my siblings, we were like, this is very strange. But it really proves that blood is thicker than water sometimes. So the story that I'm going to tell about the Bonnier family is really from an outside perspective here, and really about me doing a journey in my own family. And what I was able to focus on, which was next generation, which I thought was important in order for me to be able to offer the same opportunity for my children to be part of this journey. Before we go into the Bonnier family, this is another family, another media family. Sasha, you worked for HBO, so you were very familiar with this family. And how many here have seen this show? Okay, for those who have not seen this or in the family business, you should definitely see this. I can highly recommend it. I'm not just plugging HBO for that matter. But, sometimes you have your heroes. Alstrom family is our hero. We look to them and we see how they are growing and we want to be like them. Now, when things are really bad in our family, I think of this family and how screwed up they are. And then I feel good about myself. And so things can truly get better. Okay, Bonnier at a glance. Today, we have three core businesses: media, real estate, and investments. Turnaround is around 2.2 billion euros, with an EBITDA of around 220 million euros. So around a 10% profit margin, which is pretty good for a media company. Around 600 brands and 175 companies. Most of them are within the media core business. And as Sasha said, we're operational in 12 countries, Scandinavia and Sweden being our core, but we are also the largest book publisher in Germany today. And so how did this come about? Well, it started with a bookshop, 1804. And the first book publishing that came from the family. But then he really grew into a media and an industrial conglomerate. Parallel to this, we also had a real estate, which was kind of a byproduct of everything from our media business, given that we had printing factories in the city that then moved outside the city. And so it took about 100 years for the family to see the real estate being a part of the business. It was actually considered something that you could just easily sell off and pay off those pesky shareholders that didn't want to be a part of it. Today, it's core business, and today it gives us stability to our family. So how did we get there? Well, it's 9 generations living, and Generation 1 to 3, we call the immigrants and the builders. It all started actually with Gutkin Hirschel, who moved from Dresden to Copenhagen and changed his name. Why is that? Well, he wanted to publish books in French. And why not have a French name if you are going to publish books? So he was kind of committed to his business, you could say. But the Jewish heritage kind of disappeared as his sons, first it was Albert and then his son, Carl Otto, they assimilated to Sweden. So Gerhard Bonnier, who changed his name from Gutkin, he had 10 children. And so you can say, what is one of the success factors for family business? Having lots of kids. You never knew who was going to be successful. So that's the kind of the what we call the single ownership, 3 generations. Then came the sibling ownership, 4th and 5th generation. And this is where really some of the challenges started. The siblings didn't necessarily agree. A couple were bought out. And when it came to cousin relationship, luckily enough, the business grew enough that they really could kind of keep out of their own business. But it also created a challenge for the sixth generation because now they inherited not just a media business, but a kind of an industrial conglomerate. We had shrimp farming in Brazil, furniture factory in Poland, and then media in Sweden. And so they spent 20 years in basically selling off a lot of the assets and focusing back into media. And the seventh generation now is taken over, and we will have to see what is going to be their legacy. So was it just those people part of this journey? No. This is the cap table, so to speak, of our family. We are 171 family members, around 105 shareholders, and then the rest are their shareholders' children. And where am I? I'm right there. So I actually have the same name as my grandfather, Tor. Can you see something unusual about this family tree? We're all family, so I can say it. This is the horny side, and this is the wealthy side, right? And they own about equal share in the family business. And this has kind of created an interesting duality in our family. While this is the very entrepreneurial part, and this is very culturally oriented part. Living today is from fifth generation to ninth generation. Actually, my father is the last man standing in the fifth generation. So how have we managed this growing family? One is that quite recently we changed our governance structure. So we now have what we call a family governance structure and a corporate governance structure. Partially because we can't have like 100 family members running around telling management what to do. That is catastrophic. And some of the challenges that we had at one point in time. So we have an AGM that is all the shareholders, and a committee of 12 members is the family council, and they own the owner's directive. I'll talk a little bit about that. And then we have a topco, which is 5 shareholders that represents the legal entity of all the family business. And that is the kind of the touch point to the corporate governance structure, which is then the Bonnier Group that has the 3 subsidiaries within media, real estate, and investment. So where is the family in this structure? Well, over the 200 years, we're not operational now. We are in the family governance structure. We are 100% ownership. But as we go further down into the corporate governance structure, family is underrepresented. In the Bonnier Group, there's only 2 family members of 7 in board, and there are basically no Bonniers within the real estate and investment and media. However, we have a nomination committee that is mixed, and then we have a foundations that are full family representations. What we have implemented, though, as a growing family, is that we rotate. We have mandate periods, and we every 5 to 6 years, we rotate the members in the family in the boards. Another thing that we have implemented quite recently is our owner's directive. You could say that, if you've been in business for 200 years, haven't you had an owner's directive from day one? Absolutely not. So you don't have to worry about it. If you don't have it, there is plenty of time to have one. We actually put ours together 2013, so quite recent. But it did help us kind of get the whole family together around one vision. And that vision is, communicated not only around the shareholders, but the stakeholders, our partners, and our employees. And it really kind of helps our family and the family business to have one clear goal. And for us, it is firm first. Then we have our financial targets, which we follow up every 4 years. And then what is perhaps most important is our core values. Freedom of speech, which is what everybody knows the Bonnier family for, but also the power of the individual, because we want to make sure that we foster entrepreneurship within the corporate governance. Long-term perspective, because 200 years is what we say a good beginning. And the family business responsibility is that we as owners feel responsible for the future of everybody that we work with. Now, the importance of culture and inclusive society are two values that are important to the family from a historical point of view. So it's part of our value platform, but we don't necessarily measure the company based on that. We measure more on the family on this. We follow up every AGM every year on where we are on these values. Now, this is my favorite topic, and that is next generation. And so in 1999, all shareholders signed a 30-year contract. You can understand, I was maybe 20 years old. My father was part of that deal. He kind of locked in his children, his grandchildren into that contract. And so how do you get both creating a golden cage, but then make sure that those next gens want to be part of the journey when they really can't get off the train, so to speak? Well, it is about really focusing on them and giving them back something. So Gutkind is a platform, is an activity that is run by Next Generation, and they create all sorts of activities. So we have, for example, we just published a cartoon about the family history. So this is, for example, Gutkind Hirschel stepping off the boat in Copenhagen and deciding, what should I? Gerhard Bonnier. I'm going to change my name to Gerhard Bonnier. So there's a whole, 100-year history illustrated for young children. We have Kids Day from 0 to 10 that meet every year because as a growing family, they don't necessarily all live in Sweden. We need to make sure that we bring them together. And then as they grow, we send them around on educational trip, meet representatives from different companies around Europe. And also, fun factor is super important. If you can't have fun together, you can't work together, basically. And then we offer scholarships as well as internships in order to further their careers. This is actually my daughter. So thinking about a little bit, what are the success factors for our family? And I know every family business, I've met hundreds of them traveling around, being part of the FBN network. Each family has their story and their solution. But for us, these, I think, have been the 4 pillars of success for succession. One is having a clear vision. It's never too late to create one and getting everybody, in both the family and the business around it. The other is creating a legacy. We're a media company, but interesting enough, we didn't own our own legacy when it comes to internet. Many people have written about our family, but we hadn't written ourselves about the family. And so around 10 years ago, we wrote our own story, published it on the Bonnier website, and everybody can read it. It was quite a daring thing. We had long discussions about, for example, our Jewish heritage. How much do we talk about it? But in the end, we landed in a story that we felt represented the family and not anybody else. But also society. We are a household name in Scandinavia. My children, the first day of school, they came home and they say, why are my name in all of my friends' books? Because we publish, school books. And therefore, you really are, we realize that we're part of a fabric. And so we have several foundations that collaborate with literacy agencies and do things like that to give forward. We're also big in the art scene and have art museums in Stockholm. And then, most important, the next generation. If you now think about, I have to start thinking about planning for next generation, it's already too late. And it should really be a part of your process every day, thinking about how do I get my kids, how do I prepare my grandkids to be part of this family business, if that is your goal. Thank you so much for listening to this wrap up of 220 years of Bonnier history.
Tor, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this, Tor. And I have to ask, was that a legal mural graffiti that someone wrote there, the Gutkind?
Probably not.
Oh, you rebels.
But this is family, right? This is what says here stays here, right?
Yeah, probably. Not sure. The very most important thing is when you look at 220 years of a family tradition, um, what is the biggest threat for family business? Probably the family itself.
Absolutely. Yes. And the biggest threat, I think, is complacency. So as the family grows larger, the easier, your families, it's very easy to grow apart. So the bigger the families, the more you have to invest to keep them together. Today, I would say that we invest about €1 million in family-oriented activities in just keeping them together. And the more, in 2060, when our next shareholder agreement, we're probably going to be 300 shareholders, we will have to probably invest 10 times that money to just keep the family together.
I loved that you put the not because of HBO, but because of the family, the succession family. But let's face it, this is the worst kind of family that you want to be. A good business, but the worst kind of family.
Yes.
What disagreements do you have in the family? How do you handle them?
I think that
I don't presume that the fathers were like...
No, we're beyond that, luckily. But we've been there, I'm sure. I think that the disagreements usually deals with. It's a good question. I haven't prepared for that. No, but I think one is there's some, of course, business decisions, strategic decisions that comes up to the family fairly seldom. But at times, for example, we had broadcasting. We were going to sell the broadcast. It was basically what do you call it? The cash cow in the family. But we had to sell it because we were quite indebted. We are very happy that we did sell it, but it took almost 2 years, 3 years in discussions. How do we want to get rid of the cash cow? So there's that aspect. The other is, of course, who is going to be part and representing the family in the next generation. And I wouldn't say there's any arguments, but here again, there's levels of blood thickness. I'll leave it at that.
Good. Silence. Originally, now I'm going to speak in Czech, but it's easy. It's about Q&A. Původně jsme nechtěli vlastně dělat Q&A, protože jsme se báli, že prezentace bude delší. Thor was very quick. You were very quick with the presentation, so we have a little bit of time for Q&As. Takže máme trošku čas, protože to byl tak rychlý, na to, kdybyste se něco chtěli zeptat. Takže pokud někdo z vás má nějakou otázku, tak prosím zvedněte ruku, my vám podáme mikrofon a můžeme se zeptat teď. Pokud jsem vás teď tím zaskočil, tak si to nechte projít hlavou, já se na něco zeptám a pak se zase podívám do publika. Má někdo otázku? Máte, výborně, tak vydržte chvilku, my vám předáme mikrofon. Kolegyně teď je za vámi a předávám mikrofon.
Do I need my translator? Will you translate for me?
If you want a professional translation, yes.
All right.
Dobrý den. Zaujalo mě, že vlastně v té prezentaci bylo zmíněno, že máte kolem 190, jestli to říkám dobře, shareholderů. Zajímalo by mě, jestli to je jako ve formě akcií a jak máte zabezpečeno, aby některý člen rodiny nechtěl ty akcie prodat.
Sorry, could you repeat the questions because I didn't hear them from the beginning.
Otázka byla, mluvil jste o shareholderech ve vaší rodině a ty struktuře, kterou tam máte ve formě obrácené pyramidy. Zajímalo by mě, jestli ty shareholdři mají akcie něčeho, nebo jestli se jedná o nějaký trust, případně nadaci. A jak máte zabezpečeno, aby některý ten člen vlastně neměl zájem třeba se těch akcí nějakým způsobem, nebo těch aktiv zbavit, prodat je, aby vlastně ta rodina se jako netříštila, nebo ten majetek se netříštil?
Good questions. Thank you. All the shareholders own the shares on the body, so to speak, that we own privately. So my children will inherit my shares. So there's only one, I would add it there is one foundation because one of the shareholders, her only child died, and she owned 10% of the company, is the largest shareholder. That is actually the only thing that's owned in the foundation. But where nobody else is allowed to create foundations or corporations to put the shares in, you have to own it on your body, so to speak. And I would also add is that today over 86% of all shareholders have less than 2%. So we're basically all minority shareholders, which means that we always have to discuss and negotiate as a group. Nobody can like say, this is what we're going to do and point the whole hand. It is really some sort of I wouldn't say consensus, but I would say consent structure that we have to have. Now, on your question of selling, one is that, we target next generation. So if you're a parent and you're kind of like, should I sell or not? If that parent sees that, think they're going to be the company's offering benefits for the children, scholarships, internships, be able to travel and meet interesting people, then maybe it's worthwhile being an owner some more years, being for the next generation. Then we have so that's the carrot. The stick, so to speak, is the fact that if you sell to the parent company, there's about a 50% rebate on the value of the company. So you can sell, but you have to sell all your shares and leave the company, and you basically get only 50% of the value. So that's what I mean with the golden cage, is that we're kind of stuck in it, and those who really need to sell do it, but very, very few have done it. I think in the past 30 years, 3 have sold. That's it.
Thank you for this. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, that was a very quick and firm kind of hands up. Just a moment.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask about next gens and their own businesses. Do you have any program for them that would create a better space or opportunity for them to build their own businesses? And do you have any program that would connect those businesses into the family as a concentrated portfolio?
It's a very good question. And I know that there are other large families that do this in Europe. We have not come there yet. We've discussed it a little bit, but there is no program as such in the family that, you can go out and be entrepreneurial and then spin the business back into the family business. Not yet, but, maybe in 200 years we'll have that. We're slow movers.
Yes. So just a second, we'll give you again the mic. English or Czech? English.
Thank you.
Perfect. Hello. You have 171 active members of your family, and you said the biggest threats to a family business is family. It seems like you have so many potential members to establish a coup or to threaten that family. What kind of mechanism, other than a family vision on paper, do you have to manage and oversee maybe so many individuals? Thank you.
Good question. I think that one is that, as I mentioned, we don't have any mature majority shareholders. So the coup situation is almost impossible. They will have to gather a lot of shareholders to achieve that.
Sorry, have you seen Succession?
Yes. Yeah. But they were.
It can be done.
Anything can be done, of course. So it really come down to, I think the one important is transparency and communication. It seems super simple, but if you can't communicate in the family, then you usually get people that are disinterested. Once you're disinterested and disconnected with the family, that's really where discontent starts. So engagement is a way to limit the discontent, and communication is the tool to do that. Give you a kind of a clear answer.
We'll have, if I might ask you, we have luckily, budeme naštěstí mít Tora, we'll have you more. I'm just explaining this. Budeme mít Tora ještě tady vlastně na pódiu společně s Johannesem potom odpoledne, takže budete moci pokládat další otázky. Teďko ještě jedna poslední, the last question, before we move on.
Sure.
Because these are really difficult times and very dynamic and strange. A lot of people are really worried about what will happen with the world, basically. Your family, 222 years, went through many wars, many geopolitical changes. So, what is the recipe for a family to survive and to flourish?
Simple as patience. And you're absolutely right. I didn't, the history of World War II as a Jewish family or a Jewish heritage, we would have been on the chopping block if Sweden would have been invaded. And certainly, given that we almost had a monopoly of publishing in Scandinavia. But I think that 200 years gives you also perspective. As you said, we have lived through many different wars and situations in the world. And so that gives us some sort of hope that even though things look bleak today, they can only become better. But you also need to prepare, and you need to have a business that is agile, that can change. And this really comes back to fostering entrepreneurship in the business and always seeing who can be part of, not just in the family, but in the business to make those necessary changes. Because it can be geopolitical threats, but it also can be technological threats. As a media company, we've lived through digitization in the beginning of 2000. We went from a media monopolist in the 80s and 90s to becoming a threat was Google and Facebook and those platforms. Today, they are our best customers in some sense. And so we always have to make sure that we are adaptable within this corporate governance. So long-term family and agile in the corporate governance structure.
That's a brilliant ending for now, Tor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.